BiostatDoc here. Now that we've created that first example document, let's use it. Let's copy and paste all of the elements that we can identify and see how they change in the resulting documents. You'll be surprised how much information is in that short little example. Stick around. Let's see what we might learn by just playing with that example document. So I've got it loaded in and I've got the viewer on the right hand side so I can see both the description in the R Markdown document and the rendering of that description as an HTML document. Let's do something simple. Let's change the title to a better title and see what happens. We'll choose to knit this description to an HTML document again. And it should be obvious what's going to happen. The title changes. And so that's a good first step. Now, why don't we change one of these other ones? We are pretty sure it's going to work, but I still like to do these things one at a time. I like to make a change and reissue the knit command to make sure that everything else about the document is still okay. And so as we can see, no surprise, it shows up with a change date. So let's add to the section header and see what happens when we do that. If it gets real long, does the section header still maintain its formatting? It does. In the view that we have, there is a line break that's not actually there. If we widen that view, it will be just fine. Let's see what we learned about the bolding. So we can put 2 asterisks around our Markdown document, an entire phrase. Let's see if we can bold an entire phrase. So once we've done that, we'll re-knit the document and immediately see that the entire phrase is in fact bold, just as is the word knit in the subsequent paragraph. So nice to see on that. Next we get to our code chunk. And we haven't looked at this before, and so let's try it. There's a play button over there, and if we click it, it will actually run that code and we'll see it. So it does it in 2 places. It does it down in the console where it's copy pasted the R command so that we could see it. And it also gives us a view of the output that was the result of running that code. So it's not actually part of the document. It's not a static part of the document. It's just a dynamic view that we've gained. So let's jump down to the next code chunk. That's the plot pressure. And let's see what happens if we look at that. And so we can run that code and we see the plot shows up. We can get rid of that echo equals false. We think we understand what happens with that. We can run that code again and the plot is still there. So our view didn't really change because the view that we're looking at is just the output. So let's re-knit the document and see what happens. Well, if we go down there, we see that that echo equals false was indeed important because without it, we have the code in the output, the plot pressure, which we don't want. So let's put the echo equals false back in. And we can rerun that. We can re-knit it if we want to, and we can see the results of having made those changes to various parts of our document. Let's add an echo equals false to the first code chunk, and we'll re-knit the whole thing and make sure that both code chunks just have results. And indeed, that's what we get. So we get the output of summary cars and we get the output of plot pressure, but we don't get that code itself. Now we probably want it in that first instance and we'll change it back, if nothing more, just so that it looks like the original. So we've done a number of things here, just changing little pieces of the code, and with very good guesses, we had an idea of what would happen when we re-rendered a new document. Let's add some totally new chunk to our document. Let's make a whole new section. And we'll put in a header, and then we can type in some information, basically about our experience, just talking about how the original document has simple markdown specifications and how we could look at those and figure out what their effect was on the ultimately rendered document. So we were able to alter some of them and see how it affected the output. we were able to move some things around, we were able to knit things as bold, and now we've added an entire new section. And so let's verify that it actually got included into the final document, and it does. There are many, many more ways in which we could learn how to add things to our documents, and we're going to cover those coming up in other parts of this video series. Stick with me. We'll learn a lot together. Thanks for joining us. And check in again. We're looking to expand our series on R Markdown while also contemplating other aspects of RStudio and basic biostatistics.